Gentlemen, one of the most difficult decisions you can make in life is deciding between the Rangeman GW-9400 and the Mudman GW-9500. And if you are in this quandary right now, I am here to help. My name is Jim Kincaid and I am a G-Shock coach. I will help you make an informed decision on which one of these two to buy. Now let me tell you a little bit about myself. I run a 3-figure YouTube based G-Shock review business, and I have months and months of experience wearing G-Shock watches. And I'll just tell you right off the bat, the GW-9500 is my favorite G-Shock watch. It is absolutely durable. I will leave a link below if you are interested in buying it. I suggest buying this from G-Shock. You don't have to worry about, proof of purchase or anything, and you get G-Shock points. But for those of you who already own the Rangeman, and there are a lot of you out there, like, this watch is an amazing watch. The Rangeman GW-9400. Owners of this watch are diehards. They love this watch with good reason. It's one of the best watches ever made. G-Shock made a huge mistake when it built the Rangeman GW-9400. They made it too good, okay? But, if you already own this one, should you upgrade? I would say no. If you are happy with the Rangeman GW-9400, stick with it, all right? And so let me just compare these two, because depending on your use case, one may have some advantages over the other. And, there are some pros and cons to each of these, all right? So let's just start off with the Rangeman GW-9400. I got this one with DeWalt accents. It is available with Milwaukee accents. The most popular one, the original one, the GW-9400-1, has those Milwaukee accents, okay? Red. So, I think that it's like more of blacker color, right? This is the GW-9400Y, which is a more recent run, okay? So the original Rangeman GW-9400 came out in 2013, according to Shockbase. I just looked. And the Mudman came out in 2023, all right? So there's a 10-year gap between the two of them. So look at how in 10 years, how the technology has advanced over there at G-Shock, right? Both of these are pretty retro. They both have LCD screens, and they both, are not small watches, okay? But they are very rugged, very durable, and fulfill very basic functions for telling time. And they both have these sensors which gauge the atmospheric pressure to give you the barometer, altimeter, and compass, okay? And so on the Rangeman, the first one, it's thicker than the Mudman, right? And so that's one of the reasons why I like the Mudman, is just that it hugs the wrist closer, and it's really useful if you're working on equipment. Like, I have to do all this, like, essentially diesel engine repair. I operate equipment in the oil field, and so I have to do a lot of maintenance on it, and it's all tractor trailer truck mounted, so I also have to do some minor maintenance and repairs on tractor trailer trucks. And having a big watch, if it's too thick, and it stands too proud off the wrist, it can be kind of hard to reach into places. And the Mudman, I feel, is kind of an optimization between size and durability. It's extremely durable, and it's thinner, all right? And it hugs the wrist closer. And so that even though it's not a huge difference in size, it does give it an advantage for those of you who are out there working with your hands and do have to reach into like greasing zerks on, you're greasing the zerks on your brakes and on your drive shaft. You have to reach into tight spots, right? It's easier to wear the Mudman, in my experience. All right. Now the Rangeman is not the biggest of the G-Shocks, but it's definitely on the large size. So, like, can you get smaller G-Shocks in both of these? Absolutely. But like I said, these two are very durable, okay? Because both of them have mud-resistant buttons. Well, here's where it gets kind of crazy. the Mudman has confirmed mud resistant buttons, but the buttons on the Rangeman, like, used to be advertised as mud resist. That's how we all remember it. But maybe there's some Mandela effect going on after they turned on CERN, because now there's no indication that these are actually mud resist buttons. But they do have a gasket system, so when you push the buttons of the Rangeman, you're not pushing the button. This button has a pin that pushes through the case and has gaskets that will push the button in the inner module, okay? And it's the same thing with the Mudman, but these are confirmed mud resistant, okay? And what that means is that while all G-Shocks have 200 meters of water resistance, these provide extra protection from things that aren't mud, okay? And so I have tested the Mudman in used motor oil, in oil field filth, slop and slime, hydraulic oil, and this caliche based mud, breakfast burrito drippings, and even a cat headbutted this, all right? And so the Mudman has stood up really well, very durable, okay? Now, how's the durability on the Rangeman? Well, it's very good, okay? Now, on the internet, they're saying that there have been some examples where the lug is actually broken on the band because it's kind of invaginated there under the hood, and it can, in some extreme circumstances, it can fail. I don't get the impression that it's a weak watch, but there are some examples out there on the internet and pictures to prove it of this band breaking. And sometimes people go on the internet and they're like, well, I have a problem with this G-Shock, and they get shouted down by G-Shock fanboys. I had a problem with the updated Rangeman, the GPR H1000, that these screws came loose. All right, so screws coming loose doesn't happen on the original Rangeman because there's actually pins, and it's underneath the bezel, so you can't see. As far as I know, this screw does not holds on the bezel. All right, I don't know that for 100% sure, but I believe that like the square, this screw doesn't go through the lug, and I would need some of you guys to confirm that. But you can kind of see that this is held on by a pin on there, right? Like a regular G-Shock watch. Let me find. By the way, I got my G-Shock box right here. And I bought this with the G-Shock points, right? So you get G-Shock points when you buy directly from G-Shock. 500 G-Shock points for that one. So I was G-Shock points rich. Let me see if I can find, yeah, here it is. So see how this is like a regular G-Shock band. You can see the pin in there holding in by the lug. I believe that the Rangeman is the same way. It's just has more protection around it, okay? So you can see how if this was like smashed down really hard, it would break, right? Well, the Mudman has hard plastic wings, right? And as far as I know, this screw does go through the band into a center lug of the case, all right? So in between these two watches, they're both durable, all right? But based on my impressions and wearing both of these watches, I would say the Mudman is more durable than the Rangeman GW-9400, all right? Again, not to say that it's a weak watch at all, okay? And so the other thing that I'm gonna jump to right away has to do with the keeper, right? There's a metal keeper, and on this version, the GW-9400Y, the metal keeper is kind of gunmetal color, but on most of the Rangemen, including the GW-9400-1, it is the same color as this buckle, which is kind of like a polished steel color, okay? Now, the metal keeper looks cool, there's no doubt about it, right? But the problem is it pinches, right? So I've been bit, right? So it can be kind of aggravating. I do not like the metal keeper. Some guys do because, like I said, it looks cool. And by the way, just to show you on the GPR H1000, they kept that metal keeper And where did I thread that? How far did I chuck it? Here it is. See, so this is kind of like what the metal keeper looks like on the regular Rangeman, okay? And so it's going to ding up your desk. It's going to ding up your computer. If you are one of those guys who sit at a desk, I don't. I'm out there, working, and so I find the keeper to slide around and pinch, and I don't like it, right? Now, like I said, style-wise, it gets a lot of points for style, okay? Kind of impractical, but the Rangeman does have this barb on the end to keep the keeper from like going off of the band, right? This little barb keep it from sliding off. But you see there's a lot of wiggle room, right? Now the keeper on the Mudman, the GW-9500, is plastic, and it holds down the band snugger. It has more clamping force. No barb, but it's not needed, like I said, because it holds it pretty tight. All right. So now this, you might think, oh, that's a minor detail. Well, when you're moving around a lot and working, like it does make a difference. Like something as aggravating as the keeper keeps on pinching you can be really annoying. And so, like I said, style-wise, metal keeper is cool, but practically speaking, I want to see that plastic keeper because this is a working man's watch, okay? So we get that plastic keeper. Now, while we're looking at the bands, let's just talk about the size. They're both about the same size. So I have an 8.5-inch wrist, and you can kind of see where I'm wearing it. I'm wearing it like on the second or third hole on each of these. So they fit about the same. But if you are a big wrister, you should know that this area right here, which I call the watch crotch, and some people are like, oh, that's a little too risque. Well, technically it is what a crotch is between these 2 points. Right, so not the lug to lug, but see how the band flares out. So the lugs are there. So you can look at the website. It'll tell you what the lug to lug width is of this watch. But I took out a tape measure and I measured, all these watches, the various dimensions, including what I call the watch crotch. But I mean, it's probably not a really good phrase to describe it. But this table on the back is very wide. So if you have a wide wrist, then the Rangeman, you might find it fits you better because if you're one of those guys like Jim Rose who has a wrist shaped like a 2x4, then the Rangeman would be better. Right now, the Mudman has wings, so it has a narrower watch crotch and it's kind of forced into a circular shape. Right, so even though the circumference of the bands are about the same size, about the same. I mean, the Mudman might be a little bit bigger in the band. Yeah, I guess it is. Like a few notches bigger, maybe like one. You got one extra notch on the Mudman, right? But it's not a significant difference. Well, you know what? I take that back. Like it is a little bit bigger, but it's weird because like you'd have to try it on. I think that if you have an 8-inch or bigger wrist, because it depends a lot on your shape. But like I said, this flat part is wider on the Rangeman, right? And the Mudman has these wings that kind of force the watch into a more of a circular, like cylindrical shape, and the wings also force the band to point downward at a steeper angle, and so the band doesn't bulge out as much. So for a smaller wrister, if you're an average size wrist or smaller, you're probably going to want the Mudman, right? Or if your wrist is bigger but rounder, then it's the Mudman, right? But for average size wrists, I would say that the Mudman would probably fit a little bit better because the whole watch is, like I said, more diminutive, slightly more diminutive, and the keepers will help. Now, when I first tried on the Mudman, I was like, man, this is like kind of tight, kind of uncomfortable, and it broke in. I don't know if I broke in the Mudman or the Mudman broke in me, but after wearing it for a while, it did fit a lot better, right? And maybe it's because it got softened up with all the baths it took in diesel, because I dunked it in diesel, right? I wanted to see what would happen. It's all this bioresin, And, you know, it has this patina on it now from getting, you know, maybe it's from the diesel and the Texas sunshine, right? So the Rangeman, actually I haven't even dunked the Rangeman in diesel yet. So I haven't given it the full array of tough tests, but I've given the Rangeman a few, right? But anyways, if you're an average size wrister, I think you'll do all right. I mean, I see this watch on a lot of guys. It's really popular, and you know, but I would say that for average size wrist, you might enjoy the Mudman better. But anyways, you know what? This is a situation where you have to look to the comments, because I'm sure that some of you gentlemen are going to want to chime in as far as the fit comparing the two of these, and so that's a invaluable resource if you're trying to make that informed decision on which one of these two to buy. Look in the comments, all right? My commenters, very high IQ, very well-spoken, articulate, and they'll give you information based on their experience, which may be different than mine based on what they do, like the lifestyle they lead and the shape and size of their wrist, all right? And that applies to everything I'm saying, all right? So the next thing is that I'll go on to is just has to do with like the button pressing, okay? Like these buttons are plastic, I think. They feel plastic to me. And they have this like diamond plated kind of like the pyramiding, like on a Glock Gen 5 kind of. There's a little bit of grip to it, right? And so like, you know, you can like grab it with your fingernail, all right? If you wanted to press it. But the buttons are all, like all G-Shocks, they're protected from accidental button presses, right? And so the buttons are confirmed to be able. Actually, I didn't test this watch yet with the gloves. I don't think I did. See, guys, I've tested so many watches that off the cuff I can't remember if I've done the glove test pressing the buttons on the Rangeman. I have done the glove test on the Mudman. So these buttons. All these buttons you're able to press with gloves on. And I'm talking about impact work gloves, right? You can hit all these buttons with gloves, no problem, okay? And, you know, because I'm filming this video right now, I got to give you guys an answer about gloves. I'm pretty sure that with gloves, you can press these. You know, stay tuned. I'll confirm that with an actual test, right? And so the button pressing is a little more difficult on the Mudman, but the buttons are a little more protected. You see how there's like a metal shroud here on the left side. No metal shrouds metal buttons on the left side, metal shrouds on the right side. So if you're wearing this watch on your right wrist, you know, and you're going to have a lot of movement, like these buttons are less likely to be accidentally pressed, all right? Because of those metal shrouds, and they're more protected, you know, since most guys wear the watch on the left side of the wrist, all right? So like, I think that the buttons, you don't have to say it, I think the buttons are a little bit more durable on the Mudman because of these buttons being metal and these buttons having the shrouds. But like the grip on the buttons is better, like if you don't have gloves, is better on the Rangeman, right? A little bit easier to press, okay? Because some of these presses can get kind of awkward because like when you're pressing the buttons on this side, like the actual button is only proud of the shroud by a little bit, right? And so it's like when you're pressing it, you kind of got to get your flesh in there or the fabric of your glove to just catch those little knobs. It kind of looks like the radioactive symbol, right? And these aren't that bad. Okay, now let's talk about the light button, because this is really weird, but you kind of have to watch my guide on how to press the light button on the Mudman GW-9500. That might sound like a ridiculous premise for a YouTube video, but you know what? I'm a ridiculous guy, okay? And I made that video, and you can watch it. It's a tutorial on how to press the button. You may be like, what's the big deal? Just press the button. Ow! Ow, I hurt my thumb. Yeah, see what I'm saying? Like the angle of the front face of the watch, you think that you press like into the watch, like against your wrist. But if you do that, you're hitting the shroud, okay? And so to press the button, you have to actually press into the watch, kind of like perpendicular to the watch face, like this. See how it illuminated? Not like that, okay? You don't have that problem on the Rangeman. You just, it's obvious the direction of travel to the light button. You just put that vector of thumb pressing force against it, and bing, bang, boom, it is illuminated, okay? And so speaking of illumination, all right, here's where it gets kind of interesting. Now, both of these have, you know, these LED lights to illuminate the face, right? And so this one, you know, and the Mudman, when you flip them up, you can have them auto illuminate, right? Which is pretty cool. So the watch can sense when it's flat and can sense when it springs up, and it will automatically turn on the light when you do so, right? And to activate that, you just hold down the light button, and then if you look on the screen, it says LT. That means it's automatically illuminates, right? And by the way, this is the Right in the Rain mini bolt action pen. All right, I still have my metal readiness pen, but I got this pen because it's mini, so it can fit in your pocket really easily, chest pocket, pants pocket, or the pouch of your hoodie, because this pocket clip is so, it's not beastly, it's burly, but it will still hang on to your hoodie pouch. Anyways, this is what I'm pointing with today. All right, so illumination, very similar. However, this watch has some visibility issues that I want to talk about, because there's a duplex screen, okay? So you have the base LED screen that shows the time and that information. And when you turn on some of these functions, like, let me get out of this. Like, where is it? Like, see that purple line? All right. And see those purple rays? That's a compass, right? So it has a duplex LED. And so what happens is that there's two LED screens, okay? And they're polarized. And so at night, sometimes when you press the light button, you're gonna like lose sight of the reading at night, because the LED is issuing light. I believe an LED is kind of polarized, and then it has to go through one polarized LCD, then another polarized LCD. So you might have like it cancel out on you, right? And there's no such problem with the Rangeman. You can get dim because of that polarized effect, but it's not going to go blank, right? So that's one little quirk about the illumination, all right? And we'll talk a little bit more about visibility in a second, because I realize right now, after talking about the attributes of this watch, we haven't talked about the basic functions, okay? The basic functions, when you get down to it, pretty much the same, right? You have the standard, time, sunrise and sunset, which is called now an almanac feature. And on the Mudman, you can record various, with the altimeter, you can record like waypoints, and it'll tell you the details of your ascent or descent. Then you have a stopwatch. This stopwatch goes up to 1,000 hours. Countdown timer that starts from 24 hours. Alarm, 5 alarms with hourly chime and snooze. And then you have different time zones. And then this is when you get the multiband 6, which syncs up the time to the atomic time in Colorado. Okay, so in the continental United States and in Canada, every night at midnight, this watch will try and get the time. All right. Speaking of time, we're back to the main time screen. Okay, so on the Rangeman, it's squashed, right? And so you go through same thing, time. And here's the timer, or the stopwatch, and you see it's been rolling for a while. I stopped it at 515 hours, and that's a local time. Get the timer, alarm, 5 alarms with the hourly time. And then here's the sunrise and sunset, and it's kind of hard to see. Sunset is the smaller number, or that's above, and then the main time area is showing the sunrise. And then recall, which is the same thing with the altimeter. So record your time and your elevation. And this is when the watch last received the multiband 6 signal. And we're back to the main time. All right. So very similar with the functions. And so on the main time screen, when you press this button on the Rangeman, you can scroll between the day of the week. And then this is a graph of the barometer, which isn't continuous because I didn't wear this watch today. It was in the box, so I obviously didn't get a good reading. Day of the week, right? So the date's always displayed below the day of the week, and then you have the time, all right? Now looking at the Mudman, you have the, and looking in this top area, pressing the same button will toggle between the day of the week, abbreviated with 2 letters, and the day of the month. Then you have the date, so if you wanted to know what number of month you're in, right? And then you have the same thing, a graph, okay? And so around the periphery, you have like the power saving is on, the alarms are on, the hourly signal, and the light. And then there's a battery indicator, all right? In a similar thing, we have the battery indicator at the bottom, the light, and then the, let me just deploy the bolt action for more pointing. Hourly chime, and the alarm's on. And then this is an indication that it's received the multiband 6 time, okay? And so, very similar basic functions, and now you have the ABC functions, right? So to get to the ABC functions in the Rangeman, what you have to do is press this middle button to scroll through them and this is a separate cycle of functions from the ones you access from the mode, right? So you have the compass, and the compass is also shown with rays in this little subdial. The barometer with the temperature, right? And there's a this little ray will tell you the change in the barometer, and then the altimeter. And so now you have the local time, the elevation, and a graph that will graph your change in elevation. And then there's an animation in the subdial related to the altimeter. And off the top of my head, I actually don't know exactly what it does. I believe that you press a button and it will move around the clock, so to speak, to show your elevation gained or lost from where you set it, right? Now accessing the information, that same information on the Mudman's a little different because there's dedicated buttons for each of those. So the altimeter, the barometer, and the compass. All right, so right here's the coolest part of the Mudman, where the compass has the purple overlay, but it's the same idea as on the Rangeman, where it has the rays. So 3 rays pointing north, and then 1 ray pointing to east, west, and south, respectively. All right, and so now you might be like, well, why the Rangeman has a serious problem with having to scroll through the functions? Well, yes, that is one of the differences. But the good thing is that about the Rangeman, and this is probably its best feature, and it seems so silly, but it might be the best feature. When you're on the main time screen, when you press this forward start stop button, it just starts the stopwatch. Right? It goes to the stopwatch, gets it going. Right? Let me show you again. So we're on the main time, press this button, boom, the stopwatch is going. Right? So you don't have to scroll through the stopwatch. Now, do you use the stopwatch more often, the altimeter, barometer, and compass? I do. All right, so I actually like that feature a lot. work, I have to time, if I'm like pumping liquid nitrogen and they telling me, hey, pump for 19 more minutes. I'll be like, all right, press start, and when 19 minutes have elapsed, I'll come offline, right? And so that's a lot easier, even though the timer would be a better function. Getting to that stopwatch quickly is more important than having to like scroll through the timer. So you already missed it. Get to the timer, set the timer, then start the timer. Usually it's a lot easier just to, boom, get that stopwatch going when you need to time something, right? Because in real life, you can't like call for a timeout, right? So on the Mudman, to get to the stopwatch, you couldn't press this button because it would go to the altimeter, right? You have to go to stopwatch and then bing, bang, boom, get it going, all right? Now that I think about it, here's another difference, is that there's 1/100ths of a second on this timer and only 1/10ths of a second on this timer, all right? So let's talk about the biggest difference. Probably should have led off with this because it is what more guys are interested in when comparing the Rangeman to the Mudman, and that has to do with the screen, right? Now, the screen of the Mudman has big numbers, and it's crazy how long it took to get a G-Shock to have these really big numbers, right? There are a few that have had larger numbers, but it's kind of crazy how small these numbers are compared to the size of the watch, right? And then on top of that, you have this like bumper inside. It's like alpha gel or something. It's like some type of additional strength to the watch, right? It's like an inner bezel, and it casts shadows. So not only is this time display small compared to the size of the watch, but there's a shadow and the bezels are in the way, right? And as cool as this little LED subdial is, very difficult to see. Like right now, it's hard to see with the shadow, right? And so sometimes there's stuff going on here in the subdial related to whatever function you're in. A lot of times you can't see it, right? So it's kind of smushed and small. And like I said, this watch came out in 2013. This watch came out in 2023, but it's using Casio ProTrek type of technology that isn't that new. It's kind of repurposed for the Mudman, but it is great to see gigantic numbers. And so if you have reading glasses, obviously you're going to want the Mudman, okay? And so this screen, big numbers, the information is prominent, but for some reason all the blank space, like it's something about the design, it's like not really displayed well, right? So let me just compare it to the GD-010 to show you what I'm talking about. Similar size numbers, but somehow the GD-010 with all of these like lines, the organization kind of makes it easier to read. It's kind of like the watch face of the Mudman's a little too minimalist, right? But when it comes to the screen size, huge advantage, right? So if you're wearing reading glasses, like I said, Mudman is the way to go. And if not, like the Rangeman might get you mad sometimes, because let me show you something else. Like this shroud over the light button starts to block your vision of the time, right? And so we don't really have that issue on the Mudman. Now right now it's kind of hard to see because this light is LED, it's a little polarized, so I'm just talking about the bezel blocking your view of the numbers, right? It doesn't happen on the Mudman, right? Now you're losing sight, like I said, just because of the way the lights are, but the numbers are big and in the middle of the screen. And the numbers on the Rangeman are small and at the bottom, okay? And by the way, the one of the most popular G-Shock watches, the GW-6900 is the same thing. The numbers are small and at the bottom, so the shroud quickly, of the light button quickly occludes your view of the time, all right? So, in terms of visibility, reading the information, the Mudman wins, all right? And the visibility, the legibility is kind of a sore subject, because when I first got the Mudman, you know, I was talking about that problem with the LED light going like kind of like canceling out the screen, and also there's like it's hard to read at certain angles, and it's not always like steep angles or acute angles. It's at kind of normal angles. It starts to get dim, and there's glare, and so the glare is the light bouncing off the face of the plastic, and the dimness comes, I think, from the same thing, the polarizing light effect, where the polarized light is kind of canceling itself out, right? And so there are some visibility issues. And at first it bothered me because this watch cost $380 and I bought it new. And I'm like, finally we got a G-Shock with big numbers. But like I was like, why is it so dim? Why is it fading? You know, and at night, why can't I read it at all? And so I made a few rant videos highlighting that problem. And a lot of other people agreed. And so the Mudman, when it first was released, it was panned. I think that expectations were too high for its visibility, okay? But after wearing it for a while, I got used to that, and I do appreciate the big numbers. And so then I got the Rangeman, even though it's an older watch. Then I got that one. And the glare, which is the light bouncing off the front, is about the same, okay? Now, it doesn't have that canceling out effect, but overall, my opinion is that the Mudman has better visibility. Like, all things considered, okay? And but just in general, like the crispness of the numbers, even though they're smaller, is better on the Rangeman, right? And so that is the verdict on those two, right? And so I believe that the sensors for the ABC, I believe that they are, you know, similar in precision and accuracy. So, which is to say they're not super precise, they're not super accurate, okay? So this is a good secondary compass, altimeter, or barometer, okay? And you will have to calibrate that. Like if you drive to a mountain, you ought to find a benchmark to calibrate or use some other device with known accuracy, okay? So now I'm not gonna go into such a deep dive. I'm showing you how to calibrate the barometer and altimeter. The compass, you know, obviously you'd have to, if you want a good reading, you're going to have to calibrate that one. And so, are there any other differences between these two? Well, yes. Another big thing has to do with the bezel, right? So the bezel is bigger on the Rangeman, right? And it is like a castle turret that surrounds the screen completely, right? And it does have drains, so these are all drains. So if you get water or mud on the Rangeman, the water will wash out. But like if it's like salty or there's debris in the water, it might not all wash out. So you can get a little bit, the drainage is better on the Mudman, right? And so if you leave residue on the screen, you might have to wipe it off. It might be in the way. So the Mudman's amazing that the crenellations, as I call them, the raised portions of the bezel, there's only a few of them, right? And the rest of the bezel is just a little bit, like, what do we measure that? Like 1/128ths of an inch on average. Like this one's a little bit warped. But that allows for excellent drainage of filth off the face of this watch, which makes it better than the Rangeman in that regard, all right? You know, when you're talking about using these watches as intended, which is in really muddy situations, the Mudman will, allow the mud to flush off the watch face better than the Rangeman, okay? But it is pretty amazing, you know, when you put just regular water on the Rangeman, like to watch it just all, like, drip off. And I'll make a video about that because the GD-010, where is it? Where did the GD-010 go? It's similar, very similar, a very similar effect, where water, as the water drains off, even though it's not totally flat to the watch, those drains are raised a little bit. I guess it's a capillary action. It will pull the rest of the water with it, right? But if the water is really dirty, or if there's mud, it's not going to wash off as easily as on the Mudman, right? So I give an edge to the Mudman GW-9500 in that regard. And then the other thing that may be good or bad depending on your situation is that these screws actually do serve a function. It does, like these screws are decorations. See these screws? They're decorations. They don't actually screw in. They don't actually screw. They're not threaded, right? But they're lower than the bezel, much lower than the bezel, and they barely stick out from the side of the watch. Not so on the Mudman. These screws do serve a function. They hold, like these crenellations clamp down the bezel, right? And it does sandwich it into the back of the watch, okay? But there's a protrusion here. This will scratch, dent, or maybe even break things because it's metal, all right? Now, do I have an example? Yeah. Look at the GPRH1000. I started smashing these into each other in a video, asking which one's tougher. And then I realized that scratch up the screen a lot on the GPRH1000, right? And so, you know, if you were to walk by Shane's pickup or whatever, swinging your arms, there's a chance that it could scratch the truck. So you have to be mindful of that, right? And I suppose that this light shroud could potentially scratch something, although I haven't seen that, but these screws can and do ding things, all right? And there is a version of the Mudman that has a metal bezel, which I'm saving up for, all right? So give me 2 weeks, all right, and check back in, and you know, maybe we'll be able to compare this Mudman to the metal bezel Mudman. But this Mudman has a resin bezel, and you can see how dinged up it is, right? And so supposedly a lot of these resins are bioresins, which are stupid, right? Bioresin's stupid. Resin, you know, plastic. Resin, by resin they just mean plastic. Plastic comes from natural gas. And to say that, oh, you're like, it's better to use bioresin, that's stupid, because like you have to spend even more energy to grow plants just to turn them into gas to make the plastic, right? And I don't think that this is bioresin, but this is a newer, updated model, the GW-9400Y. Okay. Oh, look, there's that cat on the back. Pretty cool, huh? And so this back, I mean, you know, it's flat. Is it more stifling? I don't know. I feel like the Mudman gets a little bit more air under there because it's like there's a little bit more of a bevel to the side, right? And the engraving on the back of the Mudman is this mole holding a compass, right? And it's like he's crawling out of the hole. See? Oh, he's like has his hand coming out of the hole with a compass. He's wearing boots, and he's about to stomp through the mud, and he has on, you know, his pit vipers. So which one do you think is better? The cat with a giant compass, wrist-mounted compass, huge claws, and he's like a cat that's like tomcat ready to fight because the hair on his back standing up, right? Oh, one other crazy thing. Like these engravings, like you can like, if you have like a big thumbnail, you can like kind of grind it down on the back. Kind of gross. I probably shouldn't have shown you guys that. But yeah, you can see all the thumbnail scrapings. And so the other thing is that very similar buckles, right? Double prong. Now the resin on this a little more pliable. This is stiffer. So I think that this is another reason. Look, it's thicker and more durable and stiffer than the Rangeman band. So there you go, gentlemen. My choice is the GW-9500, right? But the GW-9400 is a terrific watch. Should I say GW-9500? The Mudman GW-9500 is my favorite G-Shock, right? Super durable, and it's terrific. And so I hope I explained it well, why I prefer that over the GW-9400. But the GW-9400 is a great watch, and it is very difficult to decide between the two of these. And when you factor in cost is a whole nother thing, because a lot of these GW-9400s are going on sale. I bought this on sale. So in other outlets besides G-Shock, you can get it, you know, in the 200s. Well, you know, the Mudman retails at $380, but in the Rangeman retails at $330. But like I said, tons and tons of sales for the Rangeman. I'll find a link for the GW-9400. It may not be this yellow one, because the yellow one's really hard to find. I'll just leave a link on Amazon. You can get the GW-9400. It's like one of the Amazon's best sellers, and you know, that one, like it was like $200 and something lately. I don't want to like say exactly how much it was, because I can't remember, but it was pretty cheap. And so when you factor in the cost, a lot of you may want to save the money, and if that's the case, saving the money, yeah, because this is not, the 9400 is not at all a bad watch. There's just a few features of the 9500 that make it more desirable for me, and which is why I recommend it. But this is like, everybody loves this one. Like I like a lot of my buddies have the 9400, right? And you know, it's an absolute fan favorite. And I don't even know if G-Shock needed to phase it out, but it seems like they are. Slowly, right? They're getting the Mudman, the special edition Mudmans now. They're making special edition Mudmans for the Love the Sea and the Earth, which is a Japanese environmentalist charity, right? So they're making special editions of the Mudman. And it makes sense for the Mudman to be the special edition for Love the Sea and the Earth, because like when you mix up sea and earth, you get mud, right? So the Mudman. So recently we looked at the Black Easton's Owl Mudman, right? But there's also a green iguana Mudman for the same thing, Love the Sea and the Earth, to protect an endangered species. And there's a Toyota Land Cruiser special edition Mudman. And all these, well, a few of these special editions have metal bezels and special colors, right? And so I think that the Mudman is going to replace the Rangeman eventually. But the Rangeman's still worth buying. And like I said, that's kind of a problem for Casio G-Shock, because, you know, they made the 9400 too good. And all these watches that come out, the diehards for the Rangeman won't budge. They won't move off the Rangeman. They'll be like, no thanks, I'm sticking with the Rangeman. But for what I do, I like the Mudman better for the reasons explained. And, you know, if you're interested, go ahead and click the link below. All right, gentlemen, Jesus is the way, the truth, and the life. No man comes to the Father except through him. I'm Jim Kincaid. Thanks for watching.